Okay, we're live. Hello, everybody. I'm here, Kira Lessin, here with Bret Lueder. I'm Theresa J. Morris. And this is I think, episode 11 of TJ3B Triangle. Did I do that right? And anyway, we're not sure if there's a feedback on your end, but we're going to ignore it and just power through the show. So let's talk to Bret. How you doing, Bret?
I'm doing great. You know, it's the end of my day, so it's just do the podcast and relax. So I always look forward to talking with you ladies and jumping into some interesting subject tonight.
Yes. And Teresa, how are you? So, Brett, where are you?
I'm in
You're in
Chico,
California.
California.
Oh, you're still in Chico. Okay. And Teresa J. Morris, where are you?
I'm in Texas, enjoying the weather. I was
Oh,
in
that's
I was in Gulf Breeze, Florida, but after 7 years, I've moved back home to Texas. I'm right outside of Austin. Am I clear?
yes, you're good. And I'm in Maui, Hawaii. So, oh, did you upload your video again? Here it is, add the stage. So, we're going to start tonight's show with a little video that Teresa created, I don't know, about 5, 6 years ago, right? Who
I don't
knows?
know. It's
And
only a part of a big story
well,
that I did it for you, Janet.
and I appreciate that. I do. I've been wanting you to do that. But anyway, it truncates in the middle, but there's a lot of interesting stuff. So we'll talk to you on the back end about what this is about. Okay, here we go.
UAP associates, investigative reporters, researchers, associates and peer-to-peer reviews. Our stories rely on our memories to write history. I came to this planet December 26, 1951. My first memory of someone who could be seen by me but not my mother is one who educated me at 2 years in my room. I gave him a name of Cleo or Leo, or two different beings. This was a small being, and I still have memories of this as I was trained to learn. This became a way of life. I was taken up 1954, and thanks to the memory, I can say it was my first out-of-body experience. My memory is seeing my body sleeping on the ground. I have lived with this observer outside of my body. I learned we are more than just the learning brain and mind behind our eyes. This was an important lesson. In 1957, the Russian Sputnik came over us, and me and my family stood out in the street along with neighbors to see it. I suspect it was announced on the news on the TV. While in the second grade, one contracted hepatitis A. The infectious disease control people did not know how I got it. No one in my school or city had contracted it. I died and saw angels during the blood cleaning when I had turned yellow. The hospital in Monroe, Louisiana did bring up from New Orleans, Louisiana, one of the first dialysis machines. I returned but saw two angels with a message that I would live and learn and do great things. I then willed my family to take me to White Sands, New Mexico. I campaigned over a year. The whole time I could not walk due to weakness. My mother was against the car travel over Route 66. No interstate then. My grandmother finally asked my uncle and aunt to take me in their car, and she would go and chaperone me on my quest. My uncle called his family in New Mexico so we could stay with his Indian family on the reservation. I went to White Sands and met my uncle, who worked at Los Alamos. He took us all to White Sands Missile Range. Then we had a picnic in the White Sand Dunes. While the adults stayed at the car, me and two cousins went to climb the sand dunes. At that time, when we reached the top, the two cousins, a boy about 10 and a girl about 12, said, "Look, a flying saucer." It flew overhead, and just as it crested the top of our dune overhead as it passed, it put the two cousins to sleep. I was left to go down the dune to the OTHR.
Okay. Now, remove that. Brett, what do you think of that? That's the first time you've seen it.
Well, I was disappointed it ended.
Yeah, there's a
Just
whole
starting to
hour
get
after
good.
that. You can go see it on YouTube.
It was just starting to get good,
Yeah.
and I think like anyone who sees that, they're going to wonder what happened to you when you walked down the other side of the dune.
Yeah. It's in my books.
Okay?
Oh,
I've
come
said
on.
that was something I had already had in many books. I was trying to explain to Janet, and lo and behold, along came COVID-19. So I had some time there, and I just happened to have some different software. And Janet was curious, and I told her what I was doing. I said, I'm still making videos. I've always made videos, for as long as I can remember, working in the recording studio. And I'd go to Nashville to sing. For some reason, the engineers, and they had the same Pro Tools, but I had to go to Nashville to record my music. And then, they would record it and make discs, and it would go out everywhere. But
Wait a
for
minute.
some reason,
What happened when you went
the video is just pieces of software that I got off of the internet at the time around COVID. And Janet was really wanting the story, Bret, that she's still having me write with her, of my experiences. So that is, in my mind, a true story. But people may not know that. If they read my books, they should. But depending, because I came out with Roswell UFO Encounters when I was on investigation with my husband. And right now we're watching Alias, which I never saw, with Jennifer Gardner, and it's pretty interesting. And my sister feels like that was my story, or one similar story as Alias. So my story is a long, lifelong story that began dying when I was a child and having an out-of-body experience. Now, I've searched my whole life to learn how to explain beings being out of my body and living with that observer or that higher consciousness, and having this being with me and trying to understand how I can have a family that can come and go at will on this planet. So it took me a long time to research and investigate, and that's why I went to the government. I don't know if that's why I was brought into the government, because I was brought in supposedly because of my talents and skills as a pretty girl in 1967. And Janet's got that story she started telling with the James Bond story here on the YouTube. So it just depends on if people want to do their homework. But my story's been out for 20 years. It's just now getting to Bret. Janet, I don't even know if she realizes how much of this. See, she wants everything put together in these little bullet statements. And that just what you've seen, I lived many years, right? So I'm taking a little statement and finding pictures that don't necessarily match. But that's the best I could do before we got GP3, and AI on Microsoft, Google, etc. And I was using Samurai that was sold to...
Well, I'm interested more in the story rather than the app that you used.
How it was made, the
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Well, then go back to the beginning and you'll see the kitty cats, which was ridiculous. That were the kind of beings, but that's what at that time the picture matched. Cleo and Leo, it matched a cat.
Right.
But I didn't care. I was just dabbling, and I just wanted to zap it off to Janet, and I just threw it up on YouTube. So
Let me
we'd have
break
it.
it down. So Cleo and Leo were your imaginary friends, but they were extraterrestrial aliens.
They were imaginary. They were real. They showed up. It's just my mother couldn't see
What
them.
did they look like?
I could see them.
What did they look like?
I don't remember. There were small children. And mother couldn't see them, and it really exasperated me because she couldn't see them.
I was asking.
I don't remember, Janet. I don't have a vision in my head, only a
All right.
memory.
All right.
No
So
vision.
You saw beings, but you don't know what they look like. And
To me, they were little children.
They looked like little children.
It was little children. I don't know if it was a boy or girl. That's why there was one, maybe two. I remember they taught me how to speak with my mind. They taught me how to levitate blocks. And when my mother came in, they fell. So if my mother wasn't allowed to see what I was learning,
Right.
and nor was she allowed to see them.
There are people all over the planet that are reporting how they went to a secret school. Sometimes it was the beings came to them. Sometimes they were taken on board ship. I was taken to a location down the road. There was a large Victorian house with 4 floors, and they took us to the attic, me and my best friend, and they were the same thing, teaching me telepathy, telekinesis, all kinds of things. Whitney Scriber wrote a book called The Secret School. He describes it there. So there are two uh, experiencers, UFO ET experiencers, that are kind of across the board, and they go, you know, 60, 70, 80 years, like how old we are, right? So it's nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed about. This is what's happening all over the planet. But now people are coming forth and saying, I had these experiences, and they sometimes follow a similar pattern. Right.
Well, I started writing for UFO Digest in 2007. And that's when I thought when my story goes back to way before Roswell, because I started in White Sands, New Mexico, and I had relatives that worked there. So why, here's my question to myself. Why would a little girl that had a near-death experience within a year getting better, it took me a year, I was still yellow, they saved me with those machines, like a dialysis, and cleaned I learned all this going through it, but at the time, you're living it. You don't have time to put together a story like this, right? So now that I'm 70, I think I did this when I was 69, I think. I'm 72 now, so about 3 years ago.
So you would have a near experience?
Yes, that's how I went. Remember, I left the home mother. I was in trouble, for putting the baby in the bag, which is Brenda. And the preacher, I gave the baby, or tried to give the baby to the preacher, whatever. But my mother, I'd never gotten in so much trouble, and I ran away from home, and I went down to past Kathy's house. There was no house there yet, and it was a field with flowers. It was around April, May, about the time it is now. It was into April, May, because there was flowers. And that's when I had my out-of-body near death and went up and mother, we had, where I remember seeing was before we even moved to our new house on South 7th. We were still in a military base housing for the Air Force when these beings came to see me. And I have questions about that too. They could have been poltergeist or a ghost, but these were beings I could see and moved physically, my physical reality. So remember when I told you, Mother, the reason it made me upset is one of them was there when Mother had me leaving the house and I didn't want to go. She says, well, you can't stay here by yourself. And so I said, well, I want him to go with me. And, she didn't know who I was talking about. So she pretended to see him and brought him through across the porch, out on the street, or out on the grass to the car, and had me get in the back seat. And that's when consciously I knew my mother was not my mother, in a way of speaking. And then it was verified after that when I fell asleep. So the incident that happened before meeting these beings was before I had this when my sister, you and Brenda were born. So I already knew these beings before my sister came along. I'd already been introduced to them. And how I know that is in my mind. I know the military housing where we were stationed and we were living in the Air Force behind my grandmother's house at 1503 South 3rd Street. And I just looked it up yesterday. So even though I've lived through it, I still want physical reality to exist. So these beings existed. They were small. They were smart. They had extra abilities. At least I thought they did, that my mother didn't have. And so when I realized consciously at 2 or 3, before we even bought our house on South 7th, that my mother couldn't see them and she was trying to trick me, and she opened the door and said, okay, he's getting in now, and closing the door. And I looked at Mother and I said, you can't even see him, Mother.
What was he doing while your mother was doing that?
He wasn't there.
Oh, he wasn't there.
No, he did not come out of the house. She was saying, I mean, when I left, he stayed in the room. But she pretended for me because she thinks it's like the White Rabbit story, or
Right.
children have pretend
Yeah.
people because we have imaginations. So she assumed that I had the greatest imagination, and she was playing along with me. So that was my first recognition that I was different from my physical mother. And then when Brenda came along and I got in trouble and I went down to the field and I was crying and fell asleep, that's when they took me up on a ship, or either I created the whole scene. I tend to think because I had these beings before I went up that was real to me. Now, it could be all hypnagogic because I'm studying the state of mind between sleep. I mean, I've studied everything you can imagine, parapsychology, psychology, talked to great writers, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, had the best psychology, had the best psychiatric, just had a barrage of tests. So these beings to me exist, and you could never talk me out of it because they were in my reality. How it changed me was, why did I want to go to White Sands after I died a second time?
And what was your reason?
The second great hepatitis. I don't know. I just know I had to go. And so that's when Alfred Weber got confused and felt like, he was out of his league with me on his show. We had, 50,000 people instantly tune in, but they shut me down because he works with a high ruling class as a former judge and all that legal stuff. But what happened is he got scared because of we were telling him about my Mr. and Mrs. Smith story. So all this stuff gets real complicated.
That was the two of you.
Well, when we started mentioning this White Sands at the second grade and I willed myself there, I used that term, and that scared him.
Either your friends or the teachings that you saw in the field were putting that into your mind that you need to go meet them at White Sands.
I can't hear you.
I know it's feedback.
Is it the feedback? I can hear you, but it's...
Brett, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but there's a big echo.
Yeah, do you want to try some questions? I'm going to
TJ, are you the first in your line to have contact, or is this a generational thing?
I have no idea.
Your parents never talked about anything? Didn't have any strange experiences that they told you about?
My mother all her life had intuition, but she wasn't a practicing spiritualist. She was an everyday housewife. She worked Owen Matheson. She did data computer, and then she worked at Geospace. And then there was suspicion that she was my handler, but all I know is what they told her. And when the men would call, she would give me the messages as an older. But she did know that 15, she had to sign the papers. She was my legal guardian in order to work for the government at 15. But Mother could predict when planes were going to fall out of the sky. And they'd be in the newspaper, and she would show me. So she had a skill, but
they were contacting your family because you were history of being psychic, and they do that. The government does that. They track. They can identify people because of their genetic code from the psychic ability, some kind of active DNA that average people don't have. So that is kind of multi-generational. They're looking at you in your bloodline to see if they can, if the psychic child come through, and you're very, very child, and that's how, it's like Allie Clark in Taken. They're looking for the children that have the information that they can talk to extraterrestrials, be telepathic with them, and learn their abilities.
Well, the lady that worked at the Roswell Museum with Glenn Dennis when I was on an investigation about, well, we won't go into that. Anyway, when I met her, she mailed me that book. Allie Clark said, "This is you. You need to read this." And then I saw it had come out, I guess, about the same time the movie made for television. So she had me watch it, and I did relate to that very well, including Brenda's lived in Lubbock at the time, Texas, and the Panhandle, and I did have a pair of earrings like that. It was some very unique stuff I can explain later to you.
Yeah, that happened.
But that was written, or maybe on truth.
Story. And then they moved Jupiter Ascending, and then they re-sang Jupiter Ascending. And after about 6 or 7 person, I said, I better go watch it.
Yeah. And then when in 2016, when I went to that Mid-South conference, kids were coming up saying, that's her, that's her. And parents had me signing autographs. And that's when the Men in Black came up, and then they had me talk to that Travis Taylor, and he wanted to get into the business, at the ranch. And I told him how to do that, with Prometheus and the History Channel. And he said, why do you think they'd be interested in me? I said, because you have 5 degrees for one thing. That's all you'll have to say. So I don't.
Back to our story.
Travis Taylor, and you know what I'm talking about, the ranch. He's a redhead dude.
No.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay. Well, keep going. So this story, when I get over to White Sands, is when I meet my uncles. So later on, there's some different uncles that come and live with me and my sister in NASA, working at NASA. So that tripped me out as a kid. That's when the Men in Black were visiting me at high school, and then I was getting recruited.
They were on your mother's side.
They were on my mother's side with the Air Force. My aunt worked for the government. Oh, that's probably why she showed me all those pictures of the Shah of Iran. Aunt Florence, Brenda, I know my sister's listening, but I just put that together. So she had showed me pictures at the Air Force in Florida. She worked for the Air Force in Florida, and she met the Shah of Iran, went out to the plane to meet him. She was very beautiful. Brenda, you remember Florence Smith? She's probably dead now. She was beautiful. She showed me why the government was interested in me, insisting my grandmother. What?
What was the significance of meeting
back then, Iran wanted to be Americanized. It was a very big deal. You may not remember it, but it's very historical. You'll have to look it up. Very historical time on Earth. Would have made a big difference had we done it. It didn't work out so much. So, but Iran was. It's a true story. Everything I lived through. Even the big thing is the Bob Lazar story, because I thought I was with an agent. We were going in and out of Las Vegas a lot, and I got accused of getting on Janice Airlines and all that. There's a huge story here, but I'm having to put it together myself. And this is just the beginning. And so White Sands, we had an uncle that worked at Los Alamos. That's when, in this story you just saw, the little boy and girl, 10 and 12, I don't remember their names. I saw them once and I never saw them again. But I believe, because I was an innocent, and I was like, I had hepatitis in the second. By the 3rd grade, I just graduated the 3rd grade. So I started school at 4, first grade, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. I was very young, but I was very tall. But I met them, and I never saw them again, but they put them to sleep. So our visitors are a family that flew overhead that works with the government, I would assume. I just always assumed they all worked together because my uncle worked at Los Alamos. But what I can't figure out, where did I get the idea? Did those angels or those beings put that thought in my head when I was out of body, over my body? Because I instantly wanted to go to White Sands.
What do you think happened?
I can't figure out any other thing, is that they put that idea in my head, because I never wanted to. I didn't even know what White Sands was. What?
A part of you knows, Theresa. You have to stop saying I don't know. Just access it.
Well, I feel like I was guided. I always had this energy talking, not voices like you're psychotic. I had this higher self, this voice. You know how we all talk to ourselves, the inner voice? A higher inner voice seemed to be always guiding me. And then I told you when I felt faint from lack of energy, because I was very anemic, having to eat liver and all that, to bring my body back, I had to learn to walk and talk all over again. My grandmother bought me a hammock to lie in the sun, a red hammock, to lay out in the sun because I needed vitamin D so bad because I was so yellow. They were all worried about me being yellow, and weak. But those beings came back. And I've told this story before on radio shows with you, Janet, about the orbs that picked me up. To me, in my mind, I would get dizzy and pass out, and I'd see the clouds. And then I thought they came down in an orb. And maybe that was my suggestion from Wizard of Oz with Glinda. I don't know. I just know it felt like they came from a bright light, one on each side, like in a bubble, and they picked me up, and I could feel them, and they were gone. And that same feeling came over me, but not an orb, when I was drowning in a pool, and I was in over my head going out to the fountain in Monroe. We had this huge public pool, and went out there, but this time they had so much water, and it was way over my head, like a good foot. And for some reason I was walking, and I couldn't get up enough to swim, and I felt this hand pick me up. So I guess you would say I believe in extraterrestrials in a way that people call angels. I just knew to call them angels. I had no other word for that. So,
Okay,
with the...
let's Fred, ask a question.
So this whole thing reminds me of the X-Files, where
Are you?
dad gives up, has a choice to give up the son or the daughter to the experiment. And I feel like, when you described that your mom has a sign of release so that you could be employed at age 15.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a kind of a version of that was described in X-Files. Maybe it didn't happen exactly the same way. But I think Janet's right. They were monitoring you from a very young age because they already knew of your mom.
Huh.
Okay. That's just
theory.
A pattern that I see. So my question right now is, what about your dad? Did your dad have any talents?
My father? The Thurmans, Strom Thurmans family?
Whoever your dad is.
Day After Roswell might come to mind. Philip Corso. Yeah, that's the whole Thurman family. What? Break it down. They always knew.
Because there's lots of Thurmans in the world.
Well, they were always thought they were crazy because...
Wait, stop. We have a lot of feedback. So we have to slow down.
Okay.
How is your Thurman family related to Strom Thurman? And you said Phil Corso. How are you related to those two people?
Of course, Strom Thurmond told me we were related, and I said, well, how do I know that? Because at the time I was an investigator in the University of Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama. I already had my own company, ACIR. He called me on the phone. His secretary got me on the phone, and I didn't know who I was talking to. We didn't have what we got, FaceTime. It was just a phone on the wall. We didn't even have cell phones when Strom Thurmond called me. He told me we were related. And I said, well, how do you know? He said, well, just anybody with the name Thurmond is related. But he was doing his genealogy work and stuff, and he said, I understand you want to be an investigator. What do you know about UFOs? And he mentioned Corso and told me about I have to come to Washington, and they've got things they keep in a vault. And, he wanted me on that. Would I be interested? And I was like, UFOs? Are you kidding me? But then I started thinking, putting family with my past. So I got recruited heavily. That's the President Reagan story starts there. I don't know. That's going to be a whole era.
Did your dad have any special skills? Like your
dad?
mom?
Well, from the time he was in the Army Reserves because he had a family. He wanted to be a military, but he wouldn't leave my mother. They were very young and in love, and 20 and 22 or 3, very good. They'd go skating, and I'd watch them skate, and they were dancers. They'd go out to the rendezvous. They had talents. They could skate like pros, roller skate. Okay, back then, beautiful. He'd pick her up over her head. I mean, it was beautiful. and they'd go dancing. I got to watch them dance and do the jitterbug, and he'd throw around. Beautiful time for them.
Okay,
But
that's the kind of talents I'm referring to.
oh,
Your
intelligence.
mom had talents, right? She was psychic. She did whatever.
Yeah,
Did
my
your
father.
dad do the same thing?
My father was very intuitive, but his mother, his mother could see beings. She would see, and I'd ask her who she was talking to, but she had the sight, see it into the other worlds, beyond the veil.
Your grandma.
What? My grandmother.
What's your grandmother talking to?
I don't know. She wouldn't tell me. I couldn't see them.
Would she acknowledge that she was talking to somebody?
And mother and dad just thought she was nuts, but dad had it too, and his sisters. They did, but they kept it. They didn't talk about it. But my aunt, when I went to Washington D.C., and they were somebody, and they lived in a somebody place, she gave me a lot of jewelry, and she told me about our gifts, and that was another reason Dad brought me to Washington. When we were sealed in the temple in 1980, we went to the Mormon temple and went in there and saw all the gold and all the stuff on the walls.
This in D.C. or in Utah?
D.C. We were sealed in D.C. in Washington, D.C. Yeah. In the temple. So Dad had all those connections.
The Mormon temple had the ufology with the aliens.
What?
What role do the Mormons have with aliens and ufology that was that you went?
That is their faith, historically. That is their faith. That Angel Moroni came and gave him the golden plates in Palmyra, New York, I believe it was. I've been there. I've been to where he saw the angel. But that whole thing comes from historical accounts, or does it? My story is like that. I mean, I can't prove a thing. So, but look what's happened now. Look at all the temples and the belief system, and I mean, it's amazing. And that hadn't been that long ago. And a lot of my relatives were Mormons, following that Angel Moroni story. So, angels are very powerful and can change the world. I think angels are extraterrestrials, always have. I've always said we were ETs. And there's just those above levels. I really believe in leveling up. But if this is a fallen world, as my brother-in-law says, and Jesus trying to show us how to get, just believe and get the hell out of Dodge, I think Jesus is the portal of ascension. So, just the name alone has saved me twice in this reality in the last 3 years. When I was with extraterrestrials or some that I didn't know how to get back to, and I was having a hypnagogic or whatever, and I was dying and being covered up, underground by red clay, I had to pray, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Beautiful.
The universe was me, I guess. I was underground.
Was it a dream? I don't understand.
It was in between. It was in between dimensions. It wasn't third degree. I mean, it wasn't here and it wasn't there. It was in between.
When was this?
In the last 3 years. I had 2 or 3 of them. I did like a close.
Talk about near-death experience.
I'm talking about when you're dreaming but you're not dreaming. It's like a lucid dream but on the other side. Most people don't go there because they barely can remember their dreams, much less lucid dreams. But on the other side of a lucid dream is another state of mind. It's like piercing the veil.
Can you tell us the whole dream?
Do I cause it? I guess I cause everything.
Wait. Let me have feedback. Can you tell us the entire dream while you were being buried in clay? And you're saying it was a lucid dream, so you were in another dimension. You're saying you're in another dimension.
I was in another reality.
Okay, so explain the whole dream. What happened?
I was working. I had a mission, an assignment. It was like a other world, another mission. I was working with people. There was at least 5 women. It was a whole reality. I was working to do it was like an alias, like an intelligence in another world. And this woman had put these little beads in my arm, and the only thing that saved me, and they explained to her, it's like being in a video game. I was one of 5 women, but I had come from this world, the Earth, to be with working this exercise in like a virtual reality, like a video game. And I'm not a big video game player, but I mean I know how they work, and I helped some, but I don't write video games, but I know how they work. So this was like another place in space that you go when you're not sleeping and you're not dreaming, and you know about lucid dreaming, and you know about memories, and you cross through the other side. It's very visual. So I have all of that, and then when it got to the end, I was wanting to come back to this world, and I had to actually say something in this reality to bring me back, which was Jesus, and also Mother God, so to speak, so I could get back here. And I realized then there was a reality here, and it brought me back here. And this is where I wanted to come. This was the reality I was coming in from. But that girl had killed me, but they told them, well, you can't really kill her. Another woman had tried to, remember you said, well, this is sort of like the whole dream. I was in a team, like an assassin team, like an intelligence world in another reality. It's like in the future, and I was in space. I had on like black with machines, and we had weapons, and we were on the back of a fancy jet car that zooms around, and they used high tech. And when the girl was wanting to kill me from their team, she was like a double agent, and she put this super futuristic ball in my wrist, and they told her it can't affect her because she's a believer, love, and she'll go back to her reality. And that's when I said, I believe in love, and why are you doing this to me? I thought we were friends. I thought we were working together, and the love is what the other girl told me. She doesn't understand. They don't have love where she comes from. But that she told the girl that's where I was going to go, is back here. That love brought me back here. The consciousness of love. And that's how I use the word Jesus Christ, Jesus, to bring me back, and Mother God. Mother God transcends you, your purity of pure heart, to the relationship that you're in with yourself. And I wanted to come back here. You can say my higher self brought me back here. I know it sounds deep. It does to me too, but it took me a long time to understand that. And that was during COVID-19. Those things were happening. And during that time we were in, the veil was the darkest, and we were farthest, astrological. And so there's a lot of dark things were happening. So how I got back to this world was that world where they were, and I got into, I guess, a dark place or under dirt. It was red clay, and it was a long hall, and it was I guess I had gone into a cave or something, and when I got there, it started closing in on me, and that's when I disappeared with the love of Christ, because I knew I was going to die. And that instant I came out, and I found myself back here, and I woke up back over in Gulf Breeze. But remember, I got taken up over there twice too, and I've got a video out there where I was on the beach, and you can see the clouds where I'm watching the UFO come in, and the phone drops, and my shoes are there, and the phone's still recording my daughter, and I'm not there.
You're not there.
Seriously. Yeah, I'm not there.
Right. Wow.
But that's a video, which sort of strange. So I started really, it wasn't until Gigi died and passed over telling me she had come and she knew and it was okay. And she took it really, really well, her death. Brenda's daughter did too. Both our daughters died of cancer. But they both had they're angels. What?
You're saying that Gigi died, and she came to you after she died.
Yeah, she
Break that
she
down
was
for us.
well, she's very angelic as her cousin. They're both angels now, but they can come and go as they please interdimensionally. But you have to have a feeling of love and belief and connection to do that.
So how
It's very hard to find. You have to build that knowledge. You have to expand your consciousness.
tell us about when
What?
she came to you. When did she come to you? What was going on?
Oh, it was during the terrible time with. She had just spoken at March before she died, March 2019. She had told me her energy was leaving her, and she spoke, about her book at the event at the Navarre Conference Center. And she was thankful to me, and she wanted me to know, and she gave me a beautiful gold ring to put on a belief in the future. She wanted me to always believe in the future and her intrinsic realities. She had another 2 books that she wanted to write, and she wasn't going to be able to write them. So she wanted me to make sure I carried on the business. Family business, intrinsic realities.
So she died.
Uh-huh.
And when did she come to you? What was going on?
I just told you. Did you not hear it?
I got confused.
All right. Well, it was after she had spoken at the conference.
Right.
She died March 16th. It was a bad Friday. It was a Friday. It's a terrible time at the Gulf Breeze Hospital. And, we were out there till midnight. And I asked him how long it would take her to phase space, just space her out. And, it'd be till after midnight. It was about 2. So it's actually the 16th for her death certificate. But after that's when she came to me and told me, it was after her ceremony, her burial and all that. And she came to me and she just came in the room, walked into my bedroom and told me, carry on with her. She had told me she could feel me. I couldn't.
Were you sad? You were sad,
No,
right?
I was I was in bliss, pure bliss. It's and I have to say, anytime I've died or been on the other side, it's pure bliss. It's pure higher consciousness, and if you've expanded yourself to love, that you can feel the love, love and expanded consciousness, and I think that's what we all strive for, and yet we're not supposed to, worry about pulling ourselves under here, because we get more lessons here and expand our consciousness and hopefully love, to the next level and realm where all these other beings, because the ones I worked with later on in life were highly influential, highly, intelligent. That's when you get into your UFO secret space group, right? Tom came back and spent 20 years on Earth and went back.
Right.
So Tom came to me afterwards too. But unless you're a believer, and that's all you have, because how do you experience that and how do you have faith? So some people wanted me to be a healer because they think if you've died and you've come back, you have a message. And I never really had a message other than my impulsive variety of starting the Ascension Center, which I did in Hawaii, which you still run, Ascension Center Network, and what Bret is writing the book about now, I hope. But he may have the underscore of the history that was done by Hitler trying to find all this stuff out, and that's a very dark part of the story. But it's only one part, because, they monitored World War II, and that's what I was told. And Tom verified all that with the government.
I'm going to get you. Who say that monitored World War II? What did he say?
Yeah, the people that we're talking about.
The extraterrestrials monitored World War II. Okay.
Yeah, they have monitored what we do.
Their military. Here.
They will not. They have. It's a little bit like Star Trek. I don't think Gene Roddenberry was too far off the course. After all the wars we've had in heaven, right? So there's Gene Roddenberry and Philip K. Dick.
They would not talk about war.
Those tends to be like the Adjustment Bureau. I've seen the Men in Black and I've seen the FBI, and they can stop and start you. I've seen that in hospitals. I was trained in medical corps, and then I was trained with the Nordics when Gigi was dying, right? Moffitt Cancer Center.
Right,
so
they stop you mid-sentence.
They can stop you, yes. They could stop this, just like this video. at any time. And they can stop an individual or they can stop everything. It's like an impulse.
Go ahead, Brett. I can see it on your face.
Well, Gulf Breeze has an interesting history, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So the Gulf Breeze incident, I believe, was the early 80s or maybe 1980s, something like that.
Yeah.
And the lead investigator, Bruce Maccabee, was a Navy man.
Yeah, I was Navy.
Right. And so did you ever talk with Bruce
Of course.
about your situation?
Oh, not to the details. He said every time we talked, he wound up interviewing me. But he was supposed to come on and me interview him on radio. But yeah, we've got Dr. Bruce Maccabee. He helped start what you're talking on right now, the ACO. He's the original Allied Command officer for ACO, the original CEO in 2014.
Well, so what kind of questions did he have for you in relation to the Gulf Breeze incident?
Oh, he verified to me it was very real. Of course, we had it covered up by the gentleman. We had, a whole cover story afterwards of the guy putting a fake one in the wall and all that, and the guy had to change his name and all that. But there was a huge cover up. It was really sort of sad reality for the guy. But that's okay. I mean, life goes on.
Are you talking about the little boy from the Gulf Breeze?
Oh, the cover story happened. It was a fake story put up where when they were reselling the man's house that had all the original sightings, a boy had made paper plates, and they have an actual copy of it in a museum. Paper plates, and they made a fake UFO, and he took pictures, and they showed like from a string, like they did Billy Meyer over in the other country. So they showed all that, and they hid it up. I didn't do a full investigation on it, but Dr. Bruce did before and after. He took the shots and had the shots analyzed. So he wrote about it in one of his books, I think. But he was one of the original investigators. But yeah, I worked alongside Dr. Bruce Maccabee on several occasions, including the Billy Meyer, many stories. But now Dr. Bruce Maccabee is going through it. I know Jan, his wife as well. She had the big UFO get-together in Ohio, and that's how they met, through MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. Oh, yeah, but all of us investigators on the downside are on the low. The real investigators, you don't really hear that much. But since most all of them started retiring after 2007, and then Dr. Maccabee came along and was really going into... He was trying to get out of the business, I think, but he came along with me and Jan 2014 to 2016, I think. But I think they're in Nashville. Jan told me. Jan's a friend of mine on Facebook, but they're in Nashville, I think. She moved there. She had wanted to go back there, but I don't know the full details. But yeah, I have utmost respect for Dr. Bruce Maccabee, one of our famous ACO leaders for alien contact work. He was very much familiar. All of those stories. He was one of the full-blown investigators on Billy Meyer, too. Okay. People don't know the real people, but you're talking about one of the real investigators with me and quite a few others.
So we got to get him on the show at some point.
He's having a little... Okay, we'll see. We'll talk about that off air, but I don't know. I think we'll see. He's working... they were working with a great film crew. So they probably got as much as they could at the time. Several people came and worked with Jan, and last time I talked to Jan, they were very much into helping get what they could documented. Jan Aldrich came on with us on our radio show too, right? Jan Aldrich is from way back in the day. He worked 50 years in the military. So Jan Aldrich, excellent. If we can get him on, Janet. Well, is there anything on the film that you want to ask me, Brett?
Besides X-Files, the thing that comes to mind is Whitley Strieber's book, The Secret School.
Oh yeah, Invisible College. I met him, but he probably doesn't remember it. And then I was in training in San Antonio.
Okay. So the Invisible College That's actually Jacques Vallée, I believe.
I don't know, but we call it the Invisible College
Okay. So
metaphysically.
Whitley Strieber just wrote the book, The Secret School. So, but it was
Janet,
about
you're
his
on mute.
it was about the nighttime education of Whitley Strieber while he was a young boy, adolescent into teenage years.
Oh, was that? Did they talk about the tree? There's a big tree you come to. It's like shamanistic.
He would
Well,
ride his
anyway,
BMX
however you get
bike,
indoctrinated.
like he would wake up into some kind of an altered state, and he'd be awake on one level but still asleep on
Yeah.
another level, and he'd ride his BMX bike out to a certain location. And I don't remember the details, but the tree sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah. Some people see a clown, some see a tree. When I was involved, I saw a tree, and it's a big tree. It's a huge tree, but it's really sort of a spacecraft. It's from what I understand, interdimensional travel. But the military, I was in uniform when I went to meet Whitley Strieber. I was in the Air Force. I don't know if I was in the Air Force or Navy uniform. I wore so many. I think I was. It was across from the Alamo where they had us for a conference, and then I had to walk. Oh wait, I think I changed clothes. Geez, I don't remember. I used to San Antonio's where Riverwalk is where I was trained a lot to do. You know, in and out of uniform and in and out of clothes. So I think I had to walk up a large hill, and I kept envisioning the tree into a New Age bookstore to meet Whitley Strieber. Yeah, it was very strange. And then I don't even know if that we talked. Or it was important. It was something to do with the Navy and the tree and what you just said, the invisible school.
Okay. Janet?
Interesting how these names cross over, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the military.
I took a weekend seminar with him, a group of about 30 people in Honolulu in February of 1997. And my friend, I can't mention his name, but he was in intelligence in the military. And he was there. He didn't speak the whole weekend. But at the very end, he sat there like Yoda, right? He sat there like a guru. And we said, wait, we've heard from everybody all weekend. We want to hear from this guy. And so said his name's Alan. Anyway, Alan came over and gave me a copy of Secret School. And I was getting on a plane to get to Australia on vacation with my boyfriend at the time. He said, read this. This is about you. And so, of course, I had a 16-hour flight, so I was able to read the book a lot. I've seen Whitley I've been to, for the past 25 years, dozens of conferences. Whitley's very kind.
Poor Whitley. He was really downtrodden. I wanted to help him so bad, but it wasn't my place. You know, help him promote his books. He didn't need my help. Huh?
He's very approachable. I mean, some people are more ego and aloof.
I'm approachable. Don't you think I'm approachable? I don't know that Travis Taylor thought I was.
I don't know.
He was a geek when I met him. Now he's some superstar.
Yeah. Anyway, the last conference my son was contacting the desert, and his wife just died a couple years before. We knew his wife. She was a very nice person. She would come on stage with him periodically. But she wrote a book with him after she died from the other side. So with Whitley, he gives us the connection between life and death. And there are a lot of people that see their deceased skeletons when they go on UFOs.
I'd probably talk about it more if it didn't seem so wacky. But Janet, I've had to have I've been doing a lot of reading and research all these years, and then I just gave up because I had too many things happening to me in Gulf Breeze. It was like a mecca for me leaving the planet. It was like,
you knew that before there. We talked about that.
We did.
You know what you're going into.
Well, that's what my kids kept telling me. Steffi sent me a picture of a UFO, And, I said, where'd you get that? She says, they told me to send it to you. I was like, who is they? And then she couldn't, then it was like she never said that. So they were messing with my kids a little bit too. And then, Gigi wanted me to come down there because she was having gray interaction and it was scaring the crap out of her really bad before she got cancer. She had alien, and then Steffi and Gigi had experienced time between where Pascagoula, Mississippi, and they were coming down from seeing me in Kentucky, Beaver Dam, Kentucky, to Gulf Breeze, going home. But they were crossing the bridge somewhere in Mobile, but they lost a lot of time. So I knew my kids had been taken before and lost time. So you can call it what you want, but they'll be there, and then 2 hours later, they're crossing the bridge that they had just gotten there, and they looked 7:56, and now it's 9:56. They're like, what the hell? Where'd 2 hours go on the bridge? They called me, Mom, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. I'm missing time. It's common in our family, just go with it. And they have, lights and putting out light bulbs and all that. And a lot of our kids, they're all intuitive, all the grandkids. And I told you about the grandson getting a Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Brenda and Jim I don't think they see any coincidence in that, but he was one of the kids I wrote about in Lubbock. He contacted me one time before he really knew me in Kentucky. He got a Tesla, yeah, isn't that cool?
Tell that story real quick. We have 4 minutes.
Yeah, Las Vegas. Well, we'll be going to Las Vegas, but I don't know, Janet, unless Bret and I and you want to do something, get something going here. But Bret, let's talk real quick. What do you foresee with bringing forth these stories with your triangle? Janet and I are trying to bring in the word triangle. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think when the three of us were discussing this, you mentioned the power of three.
Yeah.
And so a triangle definitely is a symbolic representation of three. And it's one of the original, original basic shapes of foundation of the universe kind of thing.
Well, how did you see it with the name TJ3B triangle? Because Janet and I are trying to figure out how you foresee.
Because a TR3B is a triangle spaceship.
Right, triangle ship. Have you seen a TR3B?
Have I seen one?
Have you seen one or been on one? Have you ever been on a TR3B in your military experience? Yeah.
Me?
Teresa.
I'll let Bret answer that first. Bret, have you
Well, not
been
that I
on
know
one or
of,
seen one?
but I'm pretty sure I've seen one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's three lights in the night sky traveling together in a pattern.
Right.
I couldn't see the outline of the ship, but I think my best guess is that it was a triangle craft.
Have you seen one, Janet?
Yeah. But,
Me too. Yeah. Several.
But I've seen
Several.
several different things, like the small craft. Not the. I've seen mothership. Mostly the small craft. I saw.
We'll have to get into that. How many ships?
Yeah. Okay, let's
How
wrap
many
it
ships?
up. How many ships? What?
Well, Bret, what kind of people you want to bring on to speak on this show? Because you named the show. You just got the idea from my Power of Three, I guess, and that inspired you to have T for TJ or Theresa, J for Janet Kira, and Bret, TJ3 for the Power of Three with Bret.
So the TR3B is the name of the spaceship, right? Or the American version of alien craft.
Yeah, American.
So it just struck me that if I just replaced one letter, the R with the J, that represented all of our initials.
Right.
And the number 3 for the power of 3 that you spoke of, Theresa. And then you can go deep into the triangle symbolism. How the different angles all support each other equally. How that 3 is a big number in magic for initiation or consecration or manifestation. So that. So it just struck me as it's perfect fit.
Well, I think the magic that we create together, the three of us, is going to be totally different than anything else they have. They've got plenty of people talking about UFOs. They have plenty of people talking about people that have had their experiences and they bring their stories on. And you have the Mutual UFO Network having, strictly, hopefully having, all the sightings with the infrared cameras and the authors and the books and the experiencers. But we are going to bring on something, I hope, totally different. The magic of making it a different story. What, Janet?
You're
We're
here.
out of time.
Okay.
So
You want to wrap it up?
So thank you everybody for coming. We'll see you again this time next week.
Well, are we having a guest? If so, we'll need 4 blocks.
I think we are. I will confirm. But coming up in the next few weeks, we have Gloria Hawker.
You're doing a really good job lining up guests.
I'll probably be camping next week, so I hope I can get on. I'll probably be using a phone, but hopefully we won't have any problems.
We have
Just start
Joanne
early.
Nancy Tim, who's an experiencer. David Gagan. Anyway, I can get some people contact you and get up books. So only pick up books.
And why do you want to bring them on our TJ3B triangle?
Paranormal, extraterrestrial, experiencer people. Some of them will talk about life after death, life near-death experiences, ghosts.
Okay. So we're not alone.
We're not alone in this field. No, it's teeny, from teeny tiny to this huge expansion. Major conferences everywhere. I mean, just think of it. We went from a world where we didn't have mobile phones and we had three stations. Now we've seen all this explosion of every technology, information. People have near-death experiences. People documenting life, people documenting.
It's coming all together, isn't it? It's finally coming all together, all the levels of consciousness. And those on the other side, piercing the veil into the higher astral levels. I think that's where all the yogis were going all along with all this meditation and stuff. But, we got to live here in this reality, figure out the expansion.
All right, so we're going to call this feedback that's driving me nuts.
Yeah, I've had enough of that.
I've had enough. And conversation. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you again this week. Just hold on for a few seconds. We're going to end the stream, and we'll talk after. Okay.